All right, biology students, this is chapter 5, and chapter 5 is all about this thing called biodiversity. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the variety, and you should follow along as we go through this, of life in an area that you can just determine by looking at the different species in the area. If it's more biodiverse, it'll have a wider variety of species in a specific area. Why is it important? Well, it actually makes an ecosystem more stable and contributes to just the overall health of the biosphere. And then the term extinction is just simply when a species, the last member of a species, is no longer there. There are actually different types of biodiversity. The first type is called genetic. And we will learn all about genetics in a different unit. It's inherited characteristics, so inheritable, meaning you receive them from your parents. We're talking about humans. So it's just the variety of different genes that you inherit that are present in a population. So if we're talking human genetic diversity, Minneapolis would have more genetic diversity compared to Thief River Falls. There's just more genes available. It's a more diverse group of people, so there's more genes that are available in that population to be passed around. What genetic diversity ensures or promises, it increases the chances that species will survive, that some species or some individuals will survive during environmental conditions or during outbreak of disease. It makes us different in genetic diversity. Some people will survive certain illnesses. Some people will not. Some people will survive different conditions. Some people will not. This goes with all animals, all plants. So if it's a more diverse population genetically, they have better odds of surviving these different factors. Another type of biodiversity is species diversity. If you add up the different species in the area, that would be species diversity. So it's the relative number and abundance, relative number of different species and the abundance of them. So you count them up. So this is a map of North America, and you can see that 0 to 50 would be not very rich in species diversity, and 650 to 700 would have higher amount of species diversity. So up here we don't have very much. The United States is basically in the green. If we go into Mexico and Central America, you can see the numbers just skyrocket. There's more species in those areas, even though the relative land space isn't as big. And the last type of biodiversity, is called ecosystem diversity. Ecosystems are at a higher level in our hierarchy of organization, and all the variety of different ecosystems that are present in the biosphere is called ecosystem diversity. And ecosystem, to remind you, is interacting populations in the area, including the abiotic factors that support them. So the type of water, the amount of water, the access to water, the nutrients in the soil, all of those different abiotic factors contributes to ecosystem diversity. So why are we talking about biodiversity? Why do we care? Biodiversity has direct economic value. We're talking money. We depend on animals, plants and animals, for food, clothing, energy, medicine. And most of the crops, the food that we eat, comes only from a few different species right now. There are wild species that serve as reservoirs or holding places for genetic traits that we might not even know that we need or that we could harvest later on that would be of value. because crops, for example, are showing something called pesticide resistance, and because the insects are essentially mutating resistant and gaining a resistance to pesticides, so they need to develop new crops that can withstand and grow properly to be able to feed all the people we have. And unknown genes or traits in the wild might be of use later on to help feed the world population. We just don't even know. Scientists use plant extracts for medicine. Aspirin, for example, it was made with plant extract, different types of medicines, and fungi used to make antibiotics that help treat diseases. And there are constantly scientists working to create new medicines, new energy sources based on harvesting what we have already. So direct economic value is something that biodiversity can ensure. This just is a little ditty about aspirin. Today, aspirin is probably the most widely used synthetic drug. It originated in the plant world. Synthetic means man-made. So the inner bark of willow trees made into tea has been used for relief of pain, fever, inflammation since ancient times. The active ingredient in willow bark is salicylic, I can't say it, that acid. It's a plant hormone. It's released when the plant is wounded and stimulates the cells to strengthen their cell walls and produce enzymes and other components to fight the infection. So that is used as an active ingredient in aspirin from a willow tree. Who knew? Now you know. Other value, direct or indirect economic value. So this isn't the value that you readily see, but it's very important. For example, green plants provide oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. This includes all the algae, the plant life in the ocean. They produce the oxygen that we breathe, and they also remove extra carbon dioxide, which too much carbon dioxide can act as a pollutant in the environment. So plants keep us healthy. We also rely on natural processes to clean our water, to make our drinking water safe. For example, wetlands that we see in some areas in Minnesota and North Dakota, they actually filter the water to help make our drinking water. So there's been active efforts to restore wetlands in these areas for that reason. And it's hard to assign direct monetary or economic value to these things because it's just so important. It's hard to do those things. So people sometimes don't think it's important because they can't see the immediate money gain from it. But however, it is equally important. And then lastly here, I think it's lastly, there is some aesthetic or pleasing beauty about biodiversity. So there is value in maintaining healthy ecosystems that are beautiful or interesting to study. Who doesn't want to go to Glacier National Park and see these waters that are so aqua or so blue-green? They're aqua, and it just sparkles. The stones in the rivers in the Montana area are so beautiful. This picture doesn't do it justice. It's just amazing. There's me, and I'm in the Swiss Alps in Switzerland. Again, amazing. You can't describe the beauty. This is also in Switzerland. There's something important about maintaining a healthy ecosystem that gives people that feeling that's hard to assign an economic value to, that makes them just feel alive and energizes you as a person. Extinction rates. So species have become extinct, and scientists, ecologists, conservation biologists want to know and count species that are in danger. they are worried about increasing rates of extinction. A mass extinction is an event in which a large percentage of living species become extinct in a short period of time. So like, for example, when the dinosaurs went kaput, that was a mass extinction. This is the estimated number of extinctions since 1600, and this groups the different animals and tells where they are and their total. So, and this shows the percent group extinct. So, for example, 2% of all the mammals have become extinct since 1600. Approximately 4,000 different species. Invertebrates are. A lot of them have become extinct, but not very much percentage-wise because there's just a lot of them. So things that threaten biodiversity, mainly due to humans, Homo sapiens, and our activities have threatened the rates of extinction. So, natural resources are the materials found in the biosphere: minerals, fossil fuels, nuclear fuels, plants, animals, soil, clean water, clean air, and solar energy. These are the materials that we need, and they're naturally found in the biosphere. And here's a good image that just shows those natural resources that we need and that is gained from a healthy biosphere. So what are threatening these natural resources? What are some factors that threaten that? One is called overexploitation, or the excessive use of a species that have economic value. So here are some images of a white rhinoceros, and this is an ocelot that if you go on our Belize trip, we'll see ocelots in Central America. And here is passenger pigeons. So this is hunting animals, typically for direct economic value, rather than without thinking about how the species could become extinct. This is overexploitation. It has led to decreased biodiversity. You've probably heard campaigns about saving the Bengal tiger, for example. They are hunted for medicinal uses or medicine, and then just aesthetic pelt beauty. Some people, even like in America, want tigers just as pets. There's actually more tigers in the United States, Bengal tigers, than there are in the wild. And so they are very much in danger of becoming extinct. So large efforts have been made to try to save them. Habitat loss is another factor that threatens biodiversity. So taking a habitat and clearing it for something. Like example, tropical rainforest cleared for wood, their trees, has direct impact. So also another example of habitat loss would be overfishing, which we'll see in our documentary. You might not think it's a big deal at the time, but eventually it can lead to a chain reaction affecting other animals within that food web and making a bad long-term difference. Another thing that threatens biodiversity is something called fragmentation of a habitat. Here is an area of habitat. Those are the dimensions. If you fragment it or break it into smaller pieces, that is fragmentation. Pieces right here. That's called habitat fragmentation. So this gives an example of that habitat. The edge, the interior habitat, that's where the animals live, in that interior, that green area. If, for example, roads were put in this habitat, you can see how the green space, the dark green space, greatly diminishes, which will directly impact the animals. Also, if you think about reproduction, and let's say we fragment this habitat and we have a lot of pumas over here, male pumas and female pumas over here. The males are going to have to risk their lives to get to the females, to cross this big interstate or highway, whatever it is, and that's going to be an issue. Now, in Florida, I mentioned the pumas, and that is an issue in Florida. with those pumas. Yeah, so smaller parcels of